Hey guys, Chip here. Today I was looking on our Discord server and Frank Maturi posted these images, and he's been posting a lot of interesting gun type images lately, and he's been getting better and better. And I'm looking at this and I told him, I said, hey Frank, man, this is really nice. Why don't you go ahead and texture it and light it? And he said, yeah, he would try and do that. I noticed he hasn't done that yet. And then I told him in a private channel, I said, hey, I'll take a shot at it if you like. If you send me the file, I'll go ahead and take a shot at it. And I thought I'd do a real quick, texturing and rendering tutorial for you guys. And first thing I did was I jumped over Midjourney and I generated this image based on, I took one of his and used that as an input and just did a bunch of different prompts. And I came up with this image that I kind of liked. And I thought, okay, that's kind of a good image to try to provide as inspiration for all of this. And so that's really how this all started. What I want to do is I want to create a very quick tutorial where I just speed things up and then comment over it. And I don't want to do any UV mapping. I'm not going out to Substance Painter. I'm using all my own materials, the EEVEE+Cycles materials that have already built-in distresses and metallics and brush materials and decals, distressed decals, all kinds of stuff in these things. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. It's a pretty quick workflow. I think I knocked this whole thing out in maybe an hour, 30 minutes, hour, 25 minutes, something like that. If I'd spend some more time, I think I'd get a lot better image. But for now, this would be something at least hopefully can excite a few of you in terms of getting you thinking about how to set up your scenes and how to use Midjourney or other AI renders to help inspire you. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I was saying, Frank gave me this file, and I thought I'd start to work from his scene file, but then I decided, nah, let's just go ahead and copy and paste all this stuff and put it into my default scene file, because I've got a lot of stuff in here that I kind of like, some lighting and presets and compositing presets, which we'll go into a little bit later. So first I started looking at it. I said, I want to see what's going on. I realized he's got every single object separated. And so I looked at it, I'm thinking, okay, what do I want to do here? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything and join it. I want to delete some of these wires, because it turns out he's got a lot of wires there. And so the first thing we'll do is let's go ahead and go to a mocap, and let's just take a quick look and see if we've got any kind of rendering artifacts that I can see. And I don't see anything. And so then as we were looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, let's just go ahead and join everything. But first, let's grab all of these wires. And I have this little tool called Simple Sketch, and it's got a tool that says select wires. So I can grab all the wires. And so let's save the file, and then I'm going to go ahead and join everything. Control J, and boom, Blender crashes. So let's go ahead and reopen Blender, and let's see what we got. Open that file because we did save it. Let's do it again, Control J, and this time Blender makes it. So, at that point is Simple Sketches, and I can select all the wires, which I did, and I put them in another group and I hid them. So these are all the wires he used for Boolean cutting and everything. And I'm looking at this thing and I realized, okay, now there are some smoothing artifacts. So that must mean that he has custom normals set. He probably adjusts the normals with a modifier, one of the modifiers, and so I go in here and I basically just clear the custom normals, and then I can right click on this and basically give it the right smooth shading setting. I think I set it to 20, and it looked pretty good. So now that I've got that done, now I just need to go ahead and start applying some materials. I can apply one material to everything, and I'll just grab this this hero material, one of the ones from my EEVEE+Cycles material pack. And remember, we're not UV editing anything here. Basically we don't set any UVs. This is just, directly cubic projection maps on everything. And this particular material is pretty cool because it can do lots of interesting things. Like it gives you a lot of dirt, and it can get edge details and all kinds of stuff. So I'm looking at some of the stuff I want to do, and I realized, well, this is all metal. Maybe what I really want is I want it to be paint. So I've got a hero metal. I'm going to call this one metal. Then I'm going to duplicate it and create a paint one. And then with the paint one, we're going to pick that green color that I saw on the Midjourney picture. And let's go back to that picture. There it is right there. So it's got that green paint. And so I basically took that file and created a little panel here and just imported that picture so it can stay right there in that panel. I can see it. So that's the green color I use for the paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some more materials. This is a kind of a grimy material, and adjust that. So I've added that. I basically had to delete all the other materials. When I joined it, all the materials came together. So what I ended up having to do is go and delete all those materials, then just start, I'm just holding the L key down and selecting, faces and just applying materials to them. And this goes on for a bit, but I'm trying to understand, looking at that picture lower, exactly what I'm looking for. Is I'm trying to get some nice contrast in some of the different materials. And I think I did that. Also, I came up with some brushed metal material too that I've just recently added to the EEVEE+Cycles material system. It's really cool brushed metal. Definitely haven't seen it. Take a look at that video. But anyway, so I'm going through looking at it, and I keep adding more and more materials and adjusting it. And one of the things I don't realize is that I'm actually working on the wrong side of the gun, because the picture wants to be on this side. So anyway, let's go back in. I'm turning on some lighting and trying to set this up correctly for the lighting, and as far as at least just for doing some material. So I keep going in, selecting different things, adding different materials to everything. So as we go, you'll see that was gold. That MIRV is just a gold material that I put on there, and select different parts, add materials, and apply. I think this is a fast way of doing things, as opposed to breaking down everything into separate objects, tabbing in and tabbing out. This way I can just be in one object. And not only that, but when I save it, I can load it easily and all of that. So this works out pretty good, I think, overall. Now what I'm doing is I'm editing the actual edges, the edge. So notice I changed that from 0.02 to 0.04. So now I make the edge width greater on that scraped edges on that paint material. So that's what that was all about. And I'm going to go into this brushed metal material, and let's move that. Let's change that so that it's 90 degrees off. I don't like it going up and down. I want to go right to left. And then I'm adjusting the scale of that material, that brushed metal, see what's going on there. So you see that happening there. I keep adjusting it to where I think I like it. 10 was too much. Maybe 5 is too much. So maybe 1 was, or 3 is about right. Let's just leave it right there. So I might, keep looking at it, looking for, the kind of the composition of all the materials and how it works together. And, going in here, I'm going to select some of this stuff. L, again, hold the L key just when you're hovering over something, and then you can just assign materials that way. It's very fast. So this whole thing took me maybe, I want to say maybe an hour, 20 minutes or something to do. But I was playing around with it a lot, which is quite a bit of fun too. So here what I'm doing, I'm taking that orange material that I created, I'm just adding that node group, that hero node group, and it's going to automatically create all the dirt and grime on top of that orange material. Now this is the base. This is just that plane that we use in my default scene. Now I'm going to just add some cutters from KitOps, and you can see I'm just moving them up and down, and then I'll just, basically, duplicate them, scale them, do some different things with them. I'll mirror them, so I can hit the mirror button on KitOps and just mirror those things around. And then I'll grab another one, drag it in, and I'll use the array feature on KitOps to array this one, so to set it, the first one, just array it all the way across. And then right click on it, make sure that we set the auto smoothing correctly. And then, start at, look at the camera and try and set up the view the way we want on that. On the camera view. And so that's where we're first starting to set the lighting up and everything. So there's the material. As you can see, I'm not crazy about the material for that bottom area. So I again went to EEVEE materials, and I used a special material called a plating material. And it's one of the ones that comes with it. And I tried this rust. I didn't like it. I added that plate, and I kind of liked the way that plating was going. So I'm going to leave that alone. And next, what I want to do is I'm going to try and get some background elements and lighting. So the lighting, I always typically do my lighting this way with a 3D viewport on the left and then one on the right. So I got the, and I'll basically move lights around and adjust them, on the left. And here I'm actually adjusting these, some cubes. And these cubes I'm just going to basically use for color. And then this is just some objects that I've created in some of my tutorials on the Sci-Fi box. I just duplicate these guys around. They're not very bright, but they have some interesting geometry in them, and they'll just sit in the background. I can just quickly go into, the viewport on the left, and I can, resize things. Here I'm adding emissive lights and colors using KitOps to add those very quickly in the scene to try and get some stuff. What I want to do is I want to get kind of a bokeh effect in the background. And so I'm just trying to set up some basic lighting to see how the bokeh is going to work out. And it turns out that's a bigger challenge than I thought it was going to be. Primarily because the object itself is so huge. I didn't realize it, but that object it's the size of a football field, so it's pretty big. And so that means it's really difficult to get a depth of field. And so, I started playing around with the, actually this is the HDRI that comes in that scene. By the way, I give that scene away on my Patreon if you want that scene with the HDRI and all these settings, including the compositing settings. Jump on the Patreon, you can get it there. So as I'm going through this, I'm trying to figure out how I want to get the lighting to match down below, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I know this is a demo and I want to get it done quickly. Here's a box I'm creating out. I'm trying to create a volumetric box. Call it volumetric. Put in a volume scatter shader, and then we just adjust the numbers in there to get them to where we like it. And I'm thinking that's going to help with some of the, the overall lighting in the scene. And now I'm going in and turning on the depth of field for the camera. And you can see right now I'm trying to set up the distance to the object itself. And sometimes I do it by just dragging that distance thing back and forth. But notice that as I'm doing that, first of all, I do that in EEVEE when I do that because it's faster. But notice I'm doing it, I'm really not getting a lot of bokeh. So I'm moving all these objects farther and farther back so I can get more bokeh. They need to be more out of focus than they are. And I keep going bigger and larger and moving it back farther and farther. Then I basically scale the volume to make sure it fits around it, adjust some more of the lighting. And again, I'm just still not that happy with the bokeh. But meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and add another light, a little down spotlight that's going to help light the kind of the floor around where the front of the gun is. So I've got that set up. I adjust the density for the volume, and now I'm looking at this. I'm going, you know what? This still doesn't work. So I basically went ahead and changed the lens, the lens to 35 millimeters, readjusted all that, and with that being 35, I'm going to be able to get more of a depth of field. So I'm just going to move these farther and farther and farther away until I can make sure that I get it right. Keep adjusting the actual f-stop to something really, really, really small, and keep moving things farther away until I really get it. Again, this time now I turned off the background, thinking that my lighting might be bad. And I kind of liked what was going on there, but I just don't have enough detail in the background. So I'm going to come back and go back to that HDR lighting here in just a minute. Here I'm playing around with that spotlight to try and figure out if I can get that bottom lighting working, and I think I got it right. And then I jacked with the lighting, the foreground lighting a little bit, just to make sure I got that right too. And now I'm going to go directly into the gun because I realize there's a couple things that I missed here. I want to make sure these are orange areas, and these are going to be those orange detail areas also. So I want to make sure I got that, and then I want to adjust the bevel width on the metal, the Hero metal stuff, which I did. And then let's go in and let's just add some decals. And I'm using Sir Charles decal packs. They're just the best. And so, and because of they've been created with KitOps, I can really do some cool things with them. In particular, one of the things that I can do is I can basically make them look like they're, they have edge wear on them. And you'll see right here. So we can erode the decal by using this slider. We just slide this decal in and out, and it just moves it. You can see how it works. Then I can copy that setting and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. So I've got that. Then I copy the color and paste and paste and paste. So, I can create any of these decals I add. I can add that same, eroded decal effect to it, which is really cool. And by the way, KitOps creates these decals also. So if you have any ping file, whatever, with a transparency channel, you can create these. Even if it's not a transparency channel, you can still create them. It'll have that same effect. So if you have KitOps Pro, it'll grab that. So here I am, once again, going in, grabbing a bunch of stuff. And I realize here that when I'm putting stuff on here, I'm having to move it around too much. And then I put this one on, and I pull it out, and it's reversed. And that means that yep, the faces are flipped here. So I just have to go in and unflip all these faces. I'll tell Frank about that and just unflip those faces. But that was the only really issue I found anywhere on the model. To be honest, it's a pretty clean model. I have to say, pretty nice. And so now here I am, just, again, adding more decals, playing with the lighting, realizing the dark background is just too dark. So let's go back in and let's change the background to have that HDRI. Let's adjust the strength of the HDRI a little bit, maybe down to 3. And now I'm just adjusting some of the other things. And now what I'm doing is I'm just doing a quick render, test render, see what's going on. I've got the depth of field set up, I've got the lighting set up, and the bokeh. I know this isn't my final one, but now I'm in the compositor, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to darken it just a little bit. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust the glow. That's the next thing I do. And so you turn the mix to 1, and then we just adjust the threshold so we can see all the stuff we want, and then jack the mix back down to 0 or whatever you want to. So that worked out well. And let's go in and add a little film grain, 0.5. So that's going to add film grain to it to make it look a little more photorealistic. And then we're going to use this lens distortion feature. The dispersion especially works really well. You can see what that does. But it's a nice feature. I'm going to add that a little bit, 0.1 and 0.1 on the distort as well. And then this is the vignette strength. So if we look at this, you can see that, you can add a vignette. It already has a pretty good vignette there, but you can see it's a little better when you go all the way there. So that's the vignette. We'll just leave it at 0.433 for now. And that looks pretty good. So let's go back and let's do some more adjustments on this. I'm going to run down and in my color management. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think we'll go down to the color management. Yes, in here. And instead of medium high, I want it to be high contrast. So that jacks with a little bit. And when that happens, then I'm going to need to probably adjust some other things. But first, let's go in and let's change the mist pass, because I want to basically use the mist pass to kind of color the background a little bit. So as I look at this, you can see the point for the beginning and the end. That's the mist pass from the camera. I don't see that the end goes all the way to the objects. They're the objects. So I need to make the mist pass larger. So I went to 1,000 and it got there. So I do another quick render, and let's go into mist control. And now I'm going to play with the mist control, different settings of it. As you can see, I'm playing with different stuff and to get different looks. And finally, I stumble on the right one. I don't use it enough to remember exactly all the way to use it every time, but that worked good. Now I'm adjusting the orange so it's not quite so bright, and playing around with some of the other stuff, the volumetrics, because remember we adjust the high contrast, adding another decal because I needed one there. And really, now we're about done. All I really need to do at this point is just go ahead and, kind of hit the render button. Again, we'll play a little bit with some of the mist pass stuff to get the thing exactly where we want it. Maybe adjust the brightness and contrast a little bit in here, and do a 150% render. So once again, I want to thank Frank Maturi for the model. Much appreciated. And I want to let you guys know that if you're interested in the compositing setup or the default scene file that I use, you can find them over on my $1 Patreon. Also, of course, you can get EEVEE+Cycles material system and KitOps Free, KitOps Pro, both at Gumroad and Blender Market. More details in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you online.